It's Thursday, August 22nd, Friday the 23rd in Japan, and we've got two systems to talk about in the tropics today. We have Tropical Storm Hone, which is forecast to move west-northwest over the next several days and could impact the Hawaiian Islands as we get into the weekend time frame and into early next week. We've also got Tropical Storm Shanshan in the West Pacific. This system is sitting in the deep tropics. We've got the Mariana Islands right here, and this is forecast to move further north and northwest over the next several days, and it could intensify significantly as it makes its way towards Japan, and we could be looking at yet another big tropical cyclone threat to Japan as we go into early next week. We're going to focus first on Hone. I'll leave a timestamp to Shanshan if you want to skip ahead to this part of the video. But we're going to start off here in the Central Pacific. If you look at the wide view, you can see things are fairly quiet overall across the Pacific, except for our little system here in the eastern part of your map. This is Tropical Storm Hone, which was named earlier this morning local time by the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. And this is forecast to, like I said, move west-northwest as we go throughout the next several days, and it's forecast to be south of Hawaii, perhaps as early as Saturday, and that could mean potential impacts for the Hawaiian Islands as we get to that time frame. Now, right now, the system is struggling a little bit. We do have some shear impacting it. You can see if we look off towards the north and east of the center, which is right about here, you might be able to pick out some cloud elements moving off towards the south and west in this part of your map. And this is part of some remaining northeasterly shear that's been impinging upon Hone for the past couple of days. You can see that this is forecast to persist for a little bit longer. This is a GFS upper level wind forecast as we go out to Saturday. So this will be Friday evening local time. And we still got some of this northeasterly flow shearing Hone a little bit. Now, this is forecast to subside by the weekend. You can see as we get into that Saturday morning time frame, we begin to see more of, say, upper level high pressure develop right over the storm, and this decreases that northeasterly shear. And this would allow the storm to intensify a little bit more, and you can see the GFS does allow it to intensify some on its model forecast. Now, that shear is not the only issue that Hone is facing, and it's likely to face another issue for a longer period of time. If we look again at the visible satellite imagery, in fact, I'll go out to the big view. If you look north and northwest of Hone, you'll see a lot of stratocumulus clouds sitting east of the Hawaiian Islands. This is an effect of cooler sea-surface temperatures that sits just north of Hone. Hone is not very far from the 26-degree isotherm, and we can see this if we go to our sea-surface temperature map. You can see the 26-degree isotherm is outlined right about here, and Hone is not too far from that. So we have all this more stable air sitting not too far from our storm. Now, well, it is attempting, and successfully today, at wrapping this convection onto the north side, we do still see that we have a lot of dry air, perhaps trying to get forced into, or fed into rather, the center of circulation. We can see just how dry this layer is if we look at some recon data that we got earlier today. We've had a lot of recon planes sent out to Hawaii today, so we'll have more recon to come. But this is from a NOAA 9 plane. They fly at the top of the troposphere. So they're flying up there and they're dropping sondes and getting an entire atmospheric sounding. So that goes in the models, we get more accurate forecasts, but also we can see the observed conditions around the storm and see exactly what's going on, rather than just looking at satellite imagery and making a guess. So I'm going to show you two of these soundings. I'm going to show you sounding 5 and sounding 8. If you look at sounding 5, you'll see that we have, like we discussed, this drier layer of air in the mid to upper levels of the troposphere. If we look at the exact values, we've got 50% relative humidity in the mid levels, even less, way less than that actually, towards the upper levels of the atmosphere. But if we look at sounding 8, and if you look at this where the circulation is, this is dry air being pulled in from the north, and this will be eventually entrained into the center of circulation. And if we look at the environments from sounding 8, you'll see even more dry air. In fact, we've got 10% or less relative humidity in the mid levels. We have a more pronounced deep layer of dry air aloft, and this is not a good sign for Hone. Now, we don't have a lot of shear right now that's going to be fully working against it and getting this dry air forced in as that shear does subside, but it does remain that this can easily get entrained because of the circulation with Hone. This is spinning counterclockwise, and we have dry air here. It's going to try and get wrapped around into the center. And this could absolutely lead to a lot of struggles over the next few days. You can see at times this center of circulation has almost become exposed. In fact, for a time yesterday, it was fully exposed. That's why it was not a tropical cyclone yesterday. And this issue is forecast to persist for quite a while. If we look at the sea surface temperature map again, you'll see that the waters north of Hone don't really start to warm up until it gets to Hawaii. And this is good news for the Hawaiian Islands, as storms often do when they're approaching from the east. They're going to struggle to intensify because we have this cooler patch of waters east of the islands, and this will likely put a cap on exactly how strong Hone can get. Even if it doesn't, say, entrain a lot of dry air, these waters are not overly deep, they're not overly warm, and it's not likely that we're going to see a very rapid intensification event out of Hone before it approaches the islands. You can see, as an example of this, Hurricane Gilma further east, this has been in waters greater than 28 degrees Celsius over the past couple of days, and this has managed to rapidly intensify into a Category 3. Now, waters here may be supportive of a hurricane, but a Category 3, not so much, and we're not looking at this being, perhaps a major hurricane coming into Hawaii. This will more than likely be a tropical storm when it comes in. Now, on that track forecast coming into Hawaii, it's pretty set. We've got an upper high sitting north of the system, and this will be continuously pushing the storm generally west. Now, we do have a little bit of a weakness here. We've got some lower pressure northwest of Hawaii, and this could act to pull the storm maybe a little bit further north. You can see that we have by Saturday morning local time, this bridge has more of an edge set because of this low pressure, and this might for that reason allow the system to come a little bit further north, and this could allow the system to get perhaps closer to, say, the Big Island of Hawaii before it turns back towards the west. As you can see, the ridge reinforces in the weekend time frame as we get closer to the Hawaiian Islands. But other than that, we have this pretty set in stone. If we look at the track guidance, they're pretty tightly clustered here, not really showing, a big mess of spaghetti as you commonly have with hurricanes this time of year. We've got actually a pretty good agreement on this track. Now, it's possible that does the system intensify a little bit more once it gets south of Hawaii? That is a possibility. You can see, like I was talking about, the sea surface temperatures do increase north of the Hawaiian Islands, and this could allow the system, if it's not struggling still with dry air by that time, perhaps from maybe hydrography in Hawaii, it could allow it to intensify some before landfall, if it does make landfall, or its closest pass. And because of that, the Central Pacific Hurricane Center has gone ahead and forecast a high-end tropical storm by the time the system does cross or get close to the Hawaiian Islands. The forecast right now is about 70 miles per hour as it gets close to these islands on Saturday and Sunday. Now, you can see by the early part of the week, it begins to move away from the islands. It's possible we still have some impacts in the northwestern islands of Hawaii, but this will be moving away and likely being sheared a bit. You can see if we go into the upper level pattern again, we're going to have this trough here sitting over the western part of Hawaii, and this will likely bring some shear to the storm. Though, keep in mind that this would be bringing potentially more impacts to Hawaii as a result, because this could be bringing westerly or southwesterly flow right over the storm, and that could push all of the convection onto the northeast side, and that could increase the impacts there. For those in Hawaii, make sure you're staying tuned to the National Weather Service office there. I'll leave a link to their office page in the description. Now, before we go to the West Pacific, I want to do one little nerd thing, as we do have another storm active in the East Pacific. I alluded to it a little bit ago, and that's Hurricane Gilma, sitting here in the East Pacific. And this is a beautiful hurricane, really like a donut on visible satellite imagery today. This is a Category 3 hurricane, the first major of the Pacific hurricane season so far. I believe it's very late. I think we usually get our first major hurricane in mid-July in the East Pacific, maybe even earlier than that. But you can see it spinning out here only a concern to shipping. Now, there have been some models that have tried to bring this system to Hawaii in the long term, but the good news is here, this system is already pretty far north. In fact, I think its latitude is north of where Hone is latitude-wise. I think it's maybe something like that. So as a result, the system, when it comes west, will be tracking over cooler waters where this more stable air mass is, and this will likely not allow the system to remain a tropical cyclone much at all as it approaches the Hawaiian Islands. And a lot of models right now, even though they do show the system trying to come to the Hawaiian Islands in the long term, they show it weakening considerably and not even being any low pressure system. It's just a trough as it comes to the Hawaiian Islands. If that does change though, we'll talk about it in time. But as of right now, Gilma is no concern to Hawaii. The main concern this week is Hone. All right, so now let's move to the West Pacific as we have Tropical Storm Shanshan here in the West Pacific. Now, right now the system is sitting in the middle of nowhere, really. You can see we're bringing some rain to the Mariana Islands, but the system is centered here in the open West Pacific. And it is looking fairly healthy in at least convection wise. You can see that we have some pretty healthy convective bursts. You might even be able to pick out a little bit of rotation in the sunrise of these convective bursts here on the west side. One thing you'll notice is that it does appear to be still a little bit sheared. You can see that the low-level center appears to be from the low-level flow right about here, and this would be on the western edge of all this convection. It's more of a lopsided system right now. Now you can sort of see the pattern that we're in from this loop, but I'll go to the water vapor imagery to make it even easier. We have this upper trough sitting just north of the system. Now, this is in ways helping Shanshan, as it's helping promote upper level divergence to the north, and it's helping promote this convection firing over it. But what it's not doing is it's not helping shear-wise. It's bringing likely some shear to our storm, and this will likely be a inhibitor for the next day or so as it continues to persistently bring shear to Shanshan in the next couple of days. Now, over the next few days, this is forecast to change. This low will become more favorable for Shanshan as it begins to kick the storm off towards the northwest. And this is in a way similar to Empil that we had last week. So if we look at the upper level plot from the GFS, you can see here's our trough sitting here. We've got that upper level divergence, so that's helping our storm, but perhaps a little bit of westerly shear, creating that lopsided structure. But as you can see, as we go in time, this low begins to back west of our storm. And now we've got the flow on the eastern side of this low in line with the steering vector. So the storm's tracking northwest, and this is now decreasing some shear. Now, there may be some shear because I don't know how fast the winds are at the surface. So it looks like they may be a bit weak and we have a little bit of wind shift. So we get some moderate shear as it tracks north and west. But in general, this is turning to be a more favorable pattern. And as this low continues backing west, it weakens as a result, as usually happen. And you'll see that we get a favorable divergent flow on the west side of this. We have a little trough coming in, perhaps aiding poleward outflow channels. And this is now a favorable low shear environment for Shanshan as it moves north and northwest. Now, this low is also going to work as the steering mechanism for the storm. This is going to likely push the storm off towards the north and northwest, and we're forecast to get the system somewhere south of Japan as we get into the late time of the weekend and into early next week. Now, as we go into the early part of the week, this low will continue to weaken and back southwest, and we're going to get some renewed troughing here over northeastern China and parts of Korea. And this will begin to turn the storm off towards the north and east. Now, the question here is, for Japan, exactly when do these patterns take these evolutions that I'm talking about here? There's been a lot of spread over the past couple of days, and there still is some spread on exactly what's going to happen here with Shanshan. We've had some models try and show that this trough is perhaps a little bit quicker, maybe a little bit stronger. This low is perhaps a little bit weaker, and that causes a storm to track a little bit further northeast away from Japan in a similar way to Empil last week. But on the other hand, and this is what the consensus is today, is that this trough comes in a little too late. So it turns the storm off towards the north and east as it's approaching the coastline. And we actually get a significant landfall from this on the model in southern Japan. And if we look at the current track guidance, we can see that consensus here. Now, we don't have all the models in, but you can see that general idea of our storm being shot northwest and then turning back towards the north and east. You can see the spread better if we look at the GFS ensemble, where we have the consensus right now into southern Japan, but we still have some outlier members trying to show the system coming maybe a bit further east, perhaps avoiding Japan in some of those model forecasts. But as of right now, this forecast is looking concerning for Japan, as this is a pretty good consensus from the GFS, and it's not just the GFS, this is other models as well. We have a multi-model consensus on a track somewhat like this coming into parts of southern Japan west of Tokyo. And the unfortunate part of this is we have a lot of warm water here. The other two storms, Maria and Impil, were further northeast, so they didn't tap into this water. This is untapped water in the West Pacific, and you're giving the system a low shear environment to take full advantage of that, and perhaps, a day, 2, 3 days over that water. That could easily lead to intensification into a significant degree, and that could be a significant storm impacting Japan. Now, the good news is here, as that trough does pick up the storm, it will be accelerating it as it does pick it up and moves it towards the northeast. So we're not going to be looking at the system stalling out, but it's still perhaps a significant hit on the way for Japan. And this is a concerning scenario for Japan, and it's very important that you're staying tuned to the Japan Meteorological Agency for the best information on how to prepare ahead of the storm so that you're not caught off guard when it does come in. You can see the current forecast from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center follows the model consensus, having the system intensify steadily, perhaps even rapidly, as it comes north and northwest, and becoming what will be a Category 3 equivalent on the Saffir-Simpson scale, and then making this northeastward turn, and by, this is the 27th of August, we're into southern Japan with potentially a landfall. And of course, remember, this is not just a coastal threat. One issue that we will have with the system moving faster is that while impacts are not being prolonged over, say, the coastal areas, that does not allow it a lot of time to weaken over land. So we could have perhaps a typhoon coming right northeast through a lot of Japan, and this could be a very significant wind maker for a lot of Japan as it moves north and northeast. So make sure you're watching this very closely, and I'll of course have more videos as we go throughout the next week with the system as it does develop and intensify. That's all that I've got for today. Thanks for watching. As I said, with Japan, be safe. Hawaii as well, be safe ahead of Hone. I'll have more videos on Hone as well as we go through the next several days. That's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching.